Bonjour, Tansy, Jerry the Big Bear here once again, and welcome to our very first session of the morning. It's going to be very exciting. I can hardly wait. Just a quick note, off the back of this session, when we have wrapped it up, there are going to be 2 words on your screen. Those are our play to win. There are going to be 2 code words coming up, and make sure you jot them down and use them, of course, to try and win our prizes at the end of the day. So once again, 2 code words will come up at the end of the presentation for our play to win. And so good luck to everybody who's playing along with those draws. Our very first session of the morning is titled Morphology, How Words Are Formed. And David Thompson has been kind enough to join us once again. And if for those of you that may recall yesterday, David joined us, and he's Ojibwe from Lake Nipigon, registered with the Rocky Bay. His clan is the Eagle, and he was raised by his grandparents who provided him with traditional cultural land-based education and an understanding of himself as a Anishinaabe. So we're very fortunate and honored to have him with us here today. So with his presentation, I introduce David Thompson. Morning, David.
Bonjour, bonjour. David Ndijnikas, Amizi Indo Dem, Nibigo Saigai Ganing Indo Jaba. Good morning, everybody. My name is David Thompson. Famous explorer, map maker. My clan is the Eagle, and I come from just north of Thunder Bay, about 2 hours, Lake Nipigon. And that's where I was raised up by my grandparents when I was a little gaffer. And so they gave me my first part of my life education, which I've carried on till this day, and I was lucky to be exposed to that life because as you get on in different stages of your journey in life, it's life is not always good. There's all kinds of challenges as you grow older. Learning never stops, and so luckily for my grandparents being there for that part of my life certainly helped me out a lot of situations and challenges as I went into my youth, my adulthood, and now I'm getting into my the 4th stage there of elderhood, where the great beings, or the big beings, as that word deeper meaning translates as. But before I get started here, I usually like to say a prayer for the language, before I get into sharing some of my stuff in my years of working in schools and with elders. Bonjour, Mushomus, Gin Eje, Gikena Menan, Gijimanado, Gin Kakinagego, Gigi Kandan, Gin Kakinagego, Gigi Yijitun, Manatuka Danan Kigoete, Wabanong, Wido Kawishinam, Jiabshituyang, Anishinaabe Moen, Manatuka Danan Kigoete, Jawanam, Wido Kawishinam, Jiabshituyang, Anishinaabe Moen. Manatuka Tanana Kigoete Ningabianam. Wido Kawishanam Jiabshatuyang Anishinaabe Moen. Manatuka Tanana Kikwete Kiwetanam. Wido Kawishanam Jiabshatuyang Anishinaabe Moen. Mokumisanam Wido Kawishanam Jiabshatuyang Anishinaabe Moen. Manatuka Tanana Kigoete Nibikan. Wido Kawishanam, Jabshituyang and Anishinaabe Moen. Mi Gwechka Mijiang, Minopamat Zewan. Mi Gwechka Gamijiang, mi jam gaya nebe, mi gwich gami young, oes yug, gaya gigo yug, gaya benesh yug, mi gwich ijimanado, indicate no gumkagijaka. Oh. So the gist of the translation is just giving thanks to our Creator and our grandfathers, grandmothers for the gift of language and to help us and guide us as we reclaim our languages and restore them to their proper place in our culture. And thanks to our grandmother for the language as well as the animals, the birds, the fish, all these things, and thankful for another day of life. So that's just a basic English translation of that. So I've been teaching for, I don't have enough fingers anymore. I have to use my toes. 16 years. I started off teaching in First Nations school on reserve, and then I transitioned to public school, where I was there for several years, close to 12 years. And then later on, I transitioned into high school and started teaching at the high school level. But it was there that my education provided to me by my grandparents started to come into play, because I started focusing more on land-based learning, land-based culture, and of course, that goes hand in hand with language. And so that's where my journey kind of connected with my education as a young boy, a child. And but besides my grandparents, I've met a lot of wonderful people in my journey, that I'm still learning from, continue to learn. Like today, you might hear some voices in the background, a lot of laughter. We have our elders are in today, because we just started our first day of in-person classes yesterday for our students at Dennis Franklin Camardi. So everybody's in a pretty happy mode, excited to see each other and interact. And it's been a long time. It was funny. My grade 9 students, when I had them yesterday, they came into the classroom, and I'm looking at my class list and I'm looking at the faces. I'm thinking, who are you? It's like, holy man, I haven't seen everybody for such a long time, and everybody's grown and matured in that time since we've been away from the school in person. So I just want to pull up my my PowerPoint here. Okay, I got to shut off the sugar bush one. Okay, go. Share screen. All right, hopefully I pressed the right buttons. Is it visible to folks out there? All right, good. So my session today is just titled Morphology, how words are formed, and I took this image, I found it on the internet. It's a nice representation of our language at the family level. Somebody asked me that question the other day about where do you think what's the state of our language? I said, well, I'd say we're in pretty rough shape. I'd say in some of our communities, especially my community, where our language is probably at an endangered level, and there's been all kinds of different strategies and approaches of trying to revitalize languages in the last 15, 20 years. So I just gave my opinion based on my years of teaching, and I've talked to a few elders who've retired and asked them the same question. And I said, and all the years that you've been teaching in schools, in that structure, in that that learning environment, have you produced any speakers? And so all those retired teachers, they're all fluent speakers, and they said no, we've never produced any fluent speakers coming out of that, how that's set up. And so the other part of my answer to that question, I said all the students that I knew that did speak came from families that spoke the language at home. So that's tells me that the languages are best taught at home in with your parents, your family, grandparents, community. I think I was listening to a CBC documentary there not too long ago talking about Pekanjikam, which has about almost over 3,000 people in the community, and I think it was like 99 or 98% speak the language, and I believe that because when I taught up in Red Lake, and a lot of my students were from those communities. And it was, it's such a wonderful thing to hear, all the grade 4s and grade 5s that came from those communities, speaking. So they were a great help in the classroom because they were like my, my little classroom assistants helping other kids, So that was my response, just from my experience, that the language is stronger retained if it's spoken by the family, passed on to the next generation. And then over the past 25, 30 years, we've had all kinds of people coming from universities, mostly non-Indigenous people, linguists, historians, and ethnohistorians. And especially linguists, they're really interested in trying to record our language and write reports about them. And a lot of these times, these reports are really, really difficult to understand and read because they're the linguists in breaking down language. Just like I drive my vehicle, and if I was a mechanic, I wouldn't have to take it to the garage. And so anytime I have vehicle problems, I take it to a local garage, get it fixed. So this was the role the linguists have taken. They've become mechanics, taking apart our language, and so I don't know how well that sits with our elders, but that information is out there, and there's oftentimes there's a lot of caution. It's kind of a danger zone, I think, when we let people outside of our language world, suddenly kind of take over. And some of the issues we've encountered, trying to use some of these resources that they've provided, is copyright, and I always, it's a red flag for me all the time. It's like, well, how did our language suddenly become your property? So we always have to be careful dealing with outside people, especially linguists, ethnohistorians, when they're taking our language and putting it into their academic reports and so forth. So my next slide here, a little bit of humor. Because our elders, our speakers are just that. Hey, they're speakers with all the tribal knowledge along with that. So this is my joke. When elders when linguists try to explain morphology to them. So that really doesn't mean a whole lot to our speakers. It puts them to sleep, and hopefully I don't put you to sleep either when I start getting more into stuff here. So going back to the beginning. So here's an illustration of Nana Bojo. and his companion, Maingan, the one who makes a strange sound. So in the beginning, the Nana Bajou, he was raised up by his grandparents. So kind of something I could relate to. His grandmother spent a lot of time with her. But when he became a young man, he always had these questions for his grandma. He says, I want to know who I am, and where's my parents, and but he wanted to go find his father, who lived far to the west, up in towards the Rockies. So, anyways, that finally that day came. She decided, okay, it's time for you to go on that journey to go find your father. So that's a whole story in itself. But part of his mission in his journey to go find his father, to meet him and ask him questions to fill that void of who am I, when in need. His part of his role was to walk on the earth, and as he walked, his job was to provide language, give out names to all the brothers and sisters that came before humans, before the Anishinaabe. So in his journey, he gave names to all the birds, all the trees, all the waters, all the animals, all the plants, fish. So he was the giver and creator of language, and then he got his name, I think, last. He was the last. When he was complete, after he had met his father and returned and named everything in his journey, he said it was time for him to leave this earth. So he told Anishinaabe, he says, I've given all these gifts to you, and he says, but I'll be back someday. He says, so before I go, he says, I want to leave this with you. He says, I'm going to take part of my name. So he received the name Nanan Bojo. He says, I'm going to leave a part of my name with you, because you never know when I return, in what form I will return. He says, I could come back as a rock or a frog, a bird, animal. He says, you won't know. He says, maybe I might come back as a human being. I could be your relative, your friend. He says, you don't know. You don't know. He says, so in the meantime, until the time I return, he says, I want you to use part of my name to greet each other. So every time you see each other, not just people, he says, all living beings, animals, birds, fish. You see a fox, you're going to say bonjour. He says, because you never know, that might be me. And so that was his parting gift to us, his last parting gift, with his message that someday I'll return. So since that day, we continue that tradition. Every time we meet each other, whether or an animal or a bird, we say bonjour. If you see that fox, say bonjour wa gauche. If you see a wolf, bonjour maingan. And so that's how that word bonjour came into our communication. I know some of these linguists, they say that word came from the French. When the French first came across the ocean, came amongst our into our territories and our lands, and their greeting is bonjour, bonjour. And so some of them have suggested, that's where that word originated from, but that's not true. We already had this story long before the French washed up on our shores. So that's a different take from their standpoint. So we have to, like I said, we always got to be cautious, careful with some of these supposed linguists and experts, because they have a lot of weight at the academic levels. Something they write or say about us, that's suddenly becomes the truth. But a lot of times we turn to our elders for the real truth. That's their story, but our story is our story. So in his journey, like I said, he was given names to all these creatures. So he gave the name to Wawashkeshi. Wawashkeshi. So in our area, we say Wawashkeshi, but when you go east, they say just Wawashkesh. So what this implies or means is that if you see that deer's tail, that's what it's referring to, Wawashkeshi. Notice that the white flapping tail when it's running. It's like it's saying, bye-bye, I'm out of here. So Wawashkeshi is referring to that deer's tail, the movement of it as it's prancing around. And then when Nana Bourgeois came upon this little cute little furry person, he looked at him and said, "Oh, that's Wabajeshi." So Wabajeshi's pine marten. And so the meaning of his name is the color of on his throat there. He's sort of like an orange color, orange fur. So that's what that's referring to, Wabajeshi. He's got light emanating from his throat. So another beautiful understanding, deeper meanings of these names that Nana Bourgeois gave to all the brothers and sisters in the forest. So he's not just a pine marten. Same with the deer, he's not just a deer. So Makwa, so when he came upon Makwa, he gave him that name, Makwa. Again, describing that beautiful fur, the color. So kind of derived from Makkadewa, or Makkadewa, referring to that dark black, beautiful fur. And moose. So when he encountered the moose, he noticed that they like eating the tips of branches, the nubs or the buds, and they do that often every day when you go out. If you get the chance to observe a moose feeding, that's what they're doing. They're taking those little buds off the tips of willows and other branches. And so from that observation, then Bourgeois decided, oh, okay, we're gonna call you moose, yeah, twig eater. And when I was in grade 7, grade 8, we all received this nice, beautiful book delivered by Basil Johnson in school. So we all got them, and I still have mine. I hold on to that with a lot of good memories. And so Basil Johnson, he went to residential school, went to university, and he's from Cape Croker. And I think that's Jerry's part of the country there, Saugeen. And so he's written a lot of books, and he went on a journey himself, meeting elders, recording stories, and really intelligent man, good speaker. And he developed this writing system. As a Anishinaabe person, he looked at, okay, what kind of writing system can we use to write our language? Because there's been many attempts to write our languages in the past, but he came up with a system. And when I got this book, I was fascinated by it, because I knew a lot of the words, and I was trying to find, okay, how do you write this in our language? And his writing system was really easy to use, so I learned it really quickly, and I still use it to this day. And to this day, I could never understand why his writing system was not adopted by schools, at least public schools. But each community will decide, what writing system, if they're going to use a writing system in their communities and their schools. They have the final say of what they're going to use. Writing systems are always challenging for any community. And if you look, I've read about orthographies being developed in other countries, other cultures, and people have had wars over writing systems of how to write their languages. And so hopefully that never happens here. we can argue over words and writing systems. That's fine, but you don't want to actually go start trying to make each other disappear from the planet. So he came up with this beautiful writing system, and when I went overseas traveling, I got my Anishinaabe Nation passport, and it was the writing system that he developed that was used in the passport. And so I was very proud to carry that around and show it off in my travels. So I got detained quite often because a lot of the European countries never seen a Anishinaabe passport before. And it's like, where are you? Where you come from? When they bring out a map, hey, show us where you come from. I said, oh, here. Oh, Canada. Okay, yeah. You're Canadian. I said, no, I'm Anishinaabe. I said, it says right there in my passport, Anishinaabe Nation. So one of my adventures. So like I said, I still use Basil Johnson's writing system to this day, even though in the public school systems now we're using what they call a double vowel writing system. And there has been attempts in the past to try to create a common writing system for everybody, but that's never going to happen because everybody from whatever area they come from have a writing system that they're comfortable with and it works for them, and that's all the best to them. And same thing in our area. We got different variety of writing systems, but this double vowel one seems to be dominating. But I wish Basil Johnson's writing system would have been adopted. Because he's an Anishinaabe, he understands the language, he understood what symbols best suited the sounds, and I still believe that. So this is just like my little guide. So this was a gift from him sent to our school, and I still treasure this. And so here's some words of wisdom from Basil. He's no longer with us, but he left a wonderful legacy of cultural information and especially language. And so here's some of the stuff he had to say about the Anishinaabe language. He says there's approximately 400,000 plus words that make up the Anishinaabe language. And apparently the Ojibwe language, Anishinaabe language, has been quoted, I think in the 1987 Guinness Book World of Records for having the most words in their language. So that's quite something. And Basil also narrowed it down to this. He says 5,000. There's approximately 5,000 total of prefixes, verbs, nouns, suffixes that can be used to combine and create new words. So some more information from Basil. And then he narrowed it down again. He says fluent speaker will require 700 prefixes, 3,500 root words, and 100 suffixes. So there's what he came up with for anybody that, working on the path to becoming a fluent speaker. And some more words of wisdom that he left. He says, after 3,000 to 4,000 hours of listening, a baby utters his or her first word. So if you're a fresh learner starting from go, so you're like a baby, so you're gonna have to put in a lot of listening hours. So this is what he came up with of what is needed. You need a lot of listening time. And so when I flip back to that question about the state of our language, so we need to be hearing it more rather than writing it and reading it. So that's the big emphasis in public schools. There's a lot of reading and writing, but unfortunately, we're not producing the result. The desired result is speakers. Whereas if you're growing up in an environment where the language is being used daily, you will become a fluent speaker, because you're hearing. Here's another elder, retired teacher. He made the point about how important our language is. He says we have to have our leadership believe that language is the single most important thing. He says because we tend to put in our communities, we tend to put economic development at the top, and housing and health. He says, but all of those things will eventually fall in place, once we have our language restored. And he says that's what we should be, putting at the very top is our language. So that was Wolf Sear from elder from Negation, Northwest Bay. And other people that have influenced me over the years, we have Larry Smallwood. He's from Mille Lacs, Minnesota. Wonderful teacher and wonderful speaker. Again, he left a nice legacy of information for us to work with. And of course, Anton Troyer, who was recently did a presentation through Lakehead University. Again, he's been on a long journey. He said when he first started reattaining the language, he said he only knew 2 words, bonjour and miigwech. So that was his starting point. And so we all have to start somewhere. But now he's he's a fluent speaker and studies the language. He's a PhD. So he's really a big supporter of language, promotes the language and the language and culture. So it's a wonderful resource. And another influential person that's really working hard to have our language kept alive is Patricia Ninguance and her grandson on Dig. So she's sort of retired, but she's still she'll never retire. She's constantly doing workshops and presentations everywhere: Manitoba, Ontario, Michigan, Wisconsin. She's all over Anishinaabe country. And her grandson, he's been mentored by her. So there's the example of being that language, that link between family members, of keeping it alive. So now getting into the how we put our language into little boxes and little circles. So that's what when we do stuff in circles, but when non-Indigenous people study our languages, everything's put in the boxes. So nouns fall into 2 categories, and this is some of the terminology that's used to refer to those two groups of nouns. So animate nouns are, some people also say living, they're considered living. And of course, new learners get confused by that when I say living, because when I start going through what the nouns are, it could be an animal, bird, trees, ceremonial items, could be a spoon or a cooking pot, people. So many of our ceremonial items, such as the drum, feathers, eagle feathers, they're considered just like a human being. So anytime we speak in the language, we refer to it as she or he, or them or they. And then anything else not on this list kind of just falls under inanimate. Just regular objects, everyday objects. It could be a chair, a book, a computer. So nouns, 2 groups. Now with verbs, we have 4 groups and sort of categories in 2 groups. So most of our verbs are already sentences. Again, some of this these linguistic tags. I hear people always saying VAI verbs. So that stands for verb animate intransitive. Okay? So that means it's considered, whoever's doing it is, a noun that's alive. So we call these red verbs because whatever the action is, it's not being transferred onto another object or person. And the second category of red verbs is VII, which stands for verb inanimate intransitive. So these are words to describe the weather or describe the date or numbers. So they're sort of related to the nature of things happening around us. Whereas on this side, there's somebody doing an action. So it could be a person, a bird, animal, it could be a feather or a spoon. So that's the first group, the red verbs. Now the green verbs, so actually a Anishinaabe person came up with these easier understanding. Red verbs means the action stops with the doer of the activity. Whereas the green verbs, the person doing the action, that action can transfer onto another person or being or object. Okay? So again, under green verbs, there's two groups. They call them VTAs. Sounds like a casino machine. Verb transitive animate. So that means someone can do something to another somebody. Okay? So being to being, and whatever the action is being transferred. And the other group is VTIs. It sounds like a sandwich. So verb transitive inanimate. So now again, a person is doing the action, but the action is being transferred to an object. Could be a book or a chair, table. So red verbs and green verbs. So there's four verb types altogether, but we in Anishinaabe understanding, we just use red verbs because the action doesn't project onto another person or object, and in green verbs where the action does transfer onto another being or object. Now, one of the things when I used to talk with Basil Johnson and Larry Smallwood, they always referred to these our sentences as root words. They said the root words is where is the center, and you build on either side of it if you want to modify the meaning of the original root word. So first example here I put is Ija, where she or he goes someplace, somewhere, or goes there. And that's the root word. So if I want to say I am going there, I have to put on a prefix. So Nindija. So once you learn this root word and you learn a prefix, so there's prefix number one, root word number one. So this is what they were referring to, Basil and Larry. So now you started off with one sentence. Suddenly you have two sentences in your vocabulary. Now, if you wanted to change your meaning of who goes where, if you want to say you go there, Gidija. Okay? So now you're telling the person to go there. And Ija again, adding a suffix, wug. You're telling a group of other people to go over there, Ija wug, or they are going there. And Nindajaman and Giddajaman are almost pretty close to the same. Just the prefix in the beginning are different. So they come from this part. So now you're adding on a suffix, and these two words. There's two e's in Ojibwe. When you say Nindajaman, you're saying you're communicating that we are doing something, but the person you're talking to is not part of that activity. And the second version, Giddajaman, and the person you're talking to is part of the group of who's doing the activity. So when I'm working with students, that word stays with them, Eja, 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 Eja. So that's the root word. And then, so this is where they start recognizing, as I always explain to them, try to relate to them in different levels. They say, okay, this is, if you ever played with Lego, this is how Lego works. You start off with your first, you put a block at the beginning or a block at the end, and I said, then your Lego starts to expand. So this is how our Ojibwe language works. So you start off with your original root word, which is actually a full sentence in Ojibwe, and you just add at the beginning different prefixes or suffixes or a combination of both. And so you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 words, and suddenly you're empowered with the language of how to say who's going where. Now this one here is a little bit more adding in if you want to say somebody's not going there. So we have to add on a different suffix, that's right, at the end. Like in linguistic terms, or they call it negation. So we just say no, gawin. So gawin ijasi. Some communities don't pronounce that last N. They just say gawin ijasi. So again, some of this variation of language will appear in different communities, different families, depending on where they're from. So gawin indijasi, gawin gidijasi, gawin gidijasi, gawin ijasi wag, gawin indijasi min, gawin gidijasi min. So again, adding on this new suffix starting with gawin. No, again, students start to build up their vocabulary. So again, using that same root word, we're building on either side, so it's just amazing, you know, when I see this happening. And so if you want to command somebody to not go there, so again, we use gego. And I always tell this story to my students. I said when I was growing up, there was a lot of grandkids around my grandparents, and we always get into everything. We're digging in stuff and going in some places we're not supposed to be digging around. So my grandfather was always saying to us, "Gego, gego." So after a while, I heard that gego so much, I thought that was my Ojibwe name. Sometimes I think it is. Don't. So gego ija kane. Don't go there. Gego ija keg. So if you're talking to more than one person, comes a group that you're telling not to go there. And some communities will say gego ija ija keyok or ija yok. Gego ija yok. So again, ija, working with the same root word. Now we want to put it into a question form. Okay? Where is she going? Where am I going? Where you're going? So again, introduce some little adjustments that have to be made. So again, either at the beginning of ija or at the end. So if you want to ask, where's she going? Ande ishat, or where am I going? I don't hear that question too often. But where are you going? I always hear that. Ande ishayan. Where all of you going? Ande ishayak. So there's the different formats of using the word ija, and you just keep building on that one word, or one sentence actually. And we have all kinds of other preverbs that you can use to modify the original word. So I just put a short list on there. Ando is to go do something. And then if you put it to say, I'm going to go do something, you'd say nindando, right? Nindando anuki, or nindando ano, no, nindando anuki, that's right. I'm going to do some work. So again, using preverbs, adding on, again, builds up student vocabulary. So they can take that one word, their eja, they can say ando eja, he's going to do something. Ane eja, he's in progress of doing, going somewhere. Baba eja, he's going here and there in different places. Bone eja. So all these prefixes you can add on to that root word eja that they're learning, and it changes, modifies where they're going to. So again, it takes a lot of practice and of course a lot of listening to put in that listening time. Again, so these are one of my, I guess they call them in classroom vocabulary is anchor charts. So so anytime students are trying to find the combination of how to use tense markers or suffixes and prefixes. So there's one root word jibakwe to she or he cooks. So they can refer to this and figure out, oh, okay, this is the formula. So that's exactly what it is. I said, so this is your recipe sheet. Follow those instructions. You'll create a wonderful well-cooked bannock. Now this one here, I don't know if you can see because it's kind of small, but the word running in Ojibwe. So I learned this from Basil Johnson, and he compiles big lists, and so I use that in my classroom to show the students, how to use. Oops, something wrong here. Batu. So batu means to run or move. There's over 100 ways that you can say batu to describe how somebody's running. So so for just that one root word batu, with all the different prefixes, you can say over 100 versions to modify how the running is being done. So again, I learned that from Basil Johnson, and so I use that often in my class, all those root words, and students are just amazing. Like once they get the hang of putting on their I keep referring to it as Lego, your Lego language. You just add stuff on and build. So in my classroom, I have all these different charts on the wall. So again, this is another anchor chart, recipe, I call it. So you can take any of these words in this column here and tack them into the empty spaces, and it modifies that word to whoever's doing it, whether it's eating, laughing, crying. So you can take any one of these and stick it in the blanks, and then you're changing who's doing that action, or they're not doing the action. And here's another chart that I use, especially when we're working with tenses, past tense, future tense, and then of course want. Want is sort of a version of a tense, because you don't know if that's going to happen at some time, a later point. So again, you can take any of those list words that I was pointing out here and use it in these charts. So these are the prefixes that go in front. So again, students have these in front of them on the wall. So anytime they're trying to create any kind of conversation, whether it's a question or sentence, then they have this reference how to use the action, whether it's happened, going to happen, or has happened. So here's another example of wisine. Wisine is eats, she or he eats. So again, going back to what Basil Johnson and Larry Smallwood taught me, says again, these are really good examples. Work with your students for root words, stuff that we do every day. Wisine. So here's all the different variations. Nuisin, I'm eating. Giwisin, you're eating. Wisnawag, they are eating. Nuisnamin, we're eating, but not you. Nuisnamin, you are eating as well with us. And Giwisim, Giwisinim, sorry. This is where you exclude yourself. You're saying to a group of people that they're eating, but you're not part of that activity. So 7 different ways that kids empower themselves just on one root word. And then question markers are really simple. They're nice and short. It's either na or inna. And so I always emphasize it's always the second word. Eh? So whatever your first word is in your communication, if you wanted to turn it into a question, this little syllable word here is going to always be second. It doesn't come first, third, or any other place, only second.
Did you all sing on the announcements?
I think I talked about that earlier. C. Yeah, so I'm going back to Basil Johnson's original book when I received this a gift as a young boy. So I still have this and treasure it dearly. So I refer to it often, and I have a nice collection of a lot of his other books that he's written. There's all kinds of beautiful stories in the language. Cultural stuff. I think there's Ojibwe heritage, Ojibwe ceremonies. So a lot of really important tribal wisdom and knowledge in those books, if you ever get a chance to read those. And because I'm familiar with, I learned his writing system. So anytime I read anything that's been written by him in his writing orthography, I already know it. So because I've been using it for so long. And the other fella, where did I lose this picture here? It's Larry. He used to use just a phonetic, just write it as it sounds. And so I learned that writing system as well from him. And so I got pretty proficient at it. And so it's easy to use. And of course, Anton and Patricia both use the double vowel writing system in their publications. So that writing system is more recent and new to me. So I've learned it. And so I can decipher a lot of the stuff that they produce and publish. And I think that was the end of my my PowerPoint presentation. So when I'm doing any kind of language stuff with the kids, I said we always have to remember the person who started it all off. Go right back to the beginning. Hey, Nana Bujo. And in Thunder Bay, we see the Nana Bujo every day. Tourists call it sleeping giant, but for us, it's really important because it always makes us think of something about ourselves every time we see that big land geographic formation and all the teachings that come from it. I just wanted to mention about the wolf. How did the wolf become his traveling companion? Well, when the creator created the earth, he created all these beautiful creatures, and of course he created a partner for everybody. So there was a male and female counterpart for everybody. And so Nana Bujo is like questioning. He says, well, what about me? I don't want to be by myself. He says, everybody else has a partner. So his prayers were answered. Creator says, yep, I'm going to get you a partner. You won't be alone in your journey. And then voila, he gets a maing and the wolf. So that's not what he expected. He was expecting a woman, but but he was going on a long journey, and he needed Maingan for that purpose. So that's what the Creator gave him to accompany him on his long journey. And then, I wanted to go back to Anton. I know he had put together a list of we were talking about morphology. The word ode, it refers to a heart, and but that de, that little root word, the morphology part, de, it appears in a lot of our language words, and for your very deep understanding meaning for our people. So ode is our heart. It appears in the word odemin, strawberry, which is the heartberry, important fruit in the ceremonies for young girls. Ode also appears in the word drum, dewagan. So dewagan is refers to the heartbeat of our Mother Earth. So dewagan is that root word de in that dewagan, heart. Again, is referring to the heart. And then same thing when we talk about our clans. Earlier I mentioned Megizi, Indu Dem. So in that word Indu Dem is the root word again, de. So it's referring to the heart. The heart is your family, your community. So notice on my shirt here I have a couple of eagles. It represents me and my daughter. So in Indu Dem refers to family. And then when we refer to our community, we say Odena. So Odena has that root word again, de. And within our communities again, it's referring to our village or community is de. That's our heart, where our heart is. And then Basil Johnson taught me the next level. He says then you say Odena. And he says now that takes it up to the bigger perspective is the heart of the nation. So Odena means the nation. So the word de is in there again. So your heart is part of the nation. So do dem is family, de, your heart. Odena, community. Your heart is in your community. And Odena is your heart is part of the nation. And so those are the beautiful teachings I got from these wonderful folks. Many who have passed on, and some are still here.
All right. Good.
So that's pretty much sums up my presentation, and so we'll see everybody in the question and answer session.
All right. Well, that was wonderful. If you were wondering about learning about the language curriculum, we learned a lot here with David Thompson. Thank you so much. And questions were coming in, and we'll save the questions for the question and answer session. But there's three points that people wanted to know. Would they be able to share your language prayer? Would you be able to share your language prayer with them? So that was a question. Also, where can I get a NAN passport like you have? And this person is a flight attendant, and she's like a Anishinaabe flight passport. And then somebody also was asking about where can I get a copy of the presentations. So we'll get you the opportunity to answer those, David, in the question and answer portion of after the breakout sessions. But just a reminder, some of you have been having problems with the internet in your hotel rooms, and it keeps cutting out or it's not there. So not to worry, because everything that you're watching here or would like to watch is recorded and published after the conference. So you can refer back and catch up on any of these topics, and you can watch for 30 days following the event. Some sessions also have content for you to take home. So be sure to download what you want when it's available. So there's time at your own leisure that you can review once again. And just to show David, I too have my Basil Johnson book. I'm a bit of a storyteller myself, so I'm really enjoying the legends of the Ojibwe people. So the spiritual world of the Ojibwe. So he's influenced me as well. Oh, and by the way, the publisher is Key Porter Books. Key Porter Books, Basil Johnson. All right, we're going to share our spin to win, play to win code word. We got 2 words coming up for you before we break out into our breakout sessions. And the first word is engagement. Write that down, it's important. Engagement is our play to win code word. Engagement, write that down. We have a second word for you. We're handing out the words left, right, and center. Ooh, there's a big word. Conjunction. Conjunction is the second word of the day. Conjunction. I'm not a smart man. The words seem to be getting harder as the languages curriculum training go on. Conjunction is our word there. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to go to our breakout session. So just follow the links and you can click on there. And then we have David has been kind enough to provide us some homework. So we'll go to our breakout sessions right away. Pour yourself another cup of coffee and we'll be there for about half an hour. Okay, David?